Mitch Lawrence, longtime NBA columnist, now host on Sirius XM NBA Radio. We bring him in to discuss what was a performance for the ages last night, Mitch. I mean, LeBron James has done many things in his career, but I don't know that one stacks up to what he did last night. Down 25, and when I turned it back, they were winning. LeBron James, epic last night, Mitch.
Oh, it was phenomenal. I mean, nobody else can do, especially in that second half, nobody else can do in the NBA. Nobody else in the NBA can do what he did last night to get that team up off the mat and playing every minute, every second of the second half. And no love, no Kyrie in the fourth quarter. They go with guys like Darren Williams and Korver and Channing Frye. And I'm telling you, that he put on, you're right, this is one of the great signature moments. He's had several of these, there's no doubt about it. He had some big moments in Boston. There was a great one at the Boston Garden. I guess that was 2012 or thereabouts, or 13. But this was right up there with any of them, even though it's just the first round, even though it's just Indiana. I mean, guys, he keeps winning these first-round games like they're nothing. And he basically put the nail in the coffin of the Pacers right then and there because they wouldn't come back from this. And the flip side of it is, we saw all about the Pacers and Paul George and the offensive ineptitude that they committed last night. It was just a series of blunders. I was actually sitting there laughing as Cleveland, as LeBron is dominating and they're making shots and they're cutting into the lead. Indiana couldn't do anything right at the offensive end, and they kept on showing Larry Bird. There was smoke coming out of his ears. I mean, it was an amazing scene. What a great performance for LeBron. This is why he is still the best player in the game today.
Mitch Lawrence with us. 21st round games in a row now for LeBron James and company. But even though they came back to win last night, Mitch, are you overall a little worried about Cleveland?
No, not at all. Because, first of all, when he can, even though he keeps talking about I'm in the league 14 years and he's 32 years old, he's still in his prime in a lot of ways, especially in the playoffs. I'm not worried about Cleveland because, quite frankly, guys, at least in the Eastern half, who else can do what he does last night to bail his team out of that type of a game? On the road, down 26 points. There's nobody in the East who can do that. You bring out your best stars, John Wall, Isaiah Thomas. Forget about the guys in Toronto. They can't even beat Milwaukee. You know what I'm talking about. There's the gap between LeBron and everybody else in the Eastern Conference is so significant. It's a joke. I mean, out west, he'd have to put up with Curry and Durant. And those guys, you know what, as a tag team could deal with him. But in the East, nobody else can deal with him. And Kyrie Irving is probably the second-best closer in the Eastern Conference when you look at his body of work and what he does in big spots in finals and making these tremendous shots. LeBron didn't even need him last night. I mean, he just it's incredible what he does. So I'm not concerned about their defense. And here's the big reason why. This narrative about they play bad defense. Let me ask you a question. Who on another team is going to expose and exploit that defense? Who do you trust in the Eastern Conference to do that? You're going to trust the Toronto backcourt? They might not even get out of this round. You're going to trust the young Bucks? You're going to trust Isaiah Thomas when he doesn't have any help in Boston? You can't count on him. I'm not going to trust Wall and Beal. I mean, guys, that's what, when you tell me that they've got a bad defense, somebody's got to be able to take advantage of that. I don't see anybody used to can.
So, Mitch, you mentioned a couple of those cutaways to Larry Bird and what his reactions are, and I saw a funny cutaway to him earlier in the series when LeBron broke away from a dunk, and I saw that meme going over and over again. If you're the Pacers, then, is this the end of Paul George in Indy, and what's on Larry Bird's to-do list?
Well, on his to-do list is he's probably got to trade Paul George. Paul George doesn't want to be there. Paul George wants to be on the Laker. He's been saying that for years, although he says publicly he likes Indiana, et cetera. He grew up a Laker fan. His father was a Magic Johnson fan. He wants to wear the purple and gold. Magic's probably going to call up Larry Bird and try to work a deal. Don't be surprised if Danny Ainge is going to try to work a deal for a guy like Paul George. I myself, looking at Paul George and seeing how he deals with teammates, you saw how he threw assorted people under the bus, including C.J. Miles after that Game 1 thing where they didn't run a good play and he didn't get the ball in his hands, and he complained about that, and he ripped C.J. Miles, which was just a terrible job. As a teammate, he's not a good leader. I wouldn't touch him. But, Magic Johnson is going to have to go out and get a star because his three young players are not going to be probably as good as Paul George, so Magic will probably have to roll the dice on him. But, yeah, I'd say this is a thing where Larry Bird's going to probably have to blow it up. And it's hard in Indiana, guys. They can't get these great players to come there as free agents, so they have to do it in the draft. You saw what happened when he gave up on Kawhi Leonard as in a draft day deal to get George Hill. You've seen that they did get Paul George, and they got Reggie Miller once. So they're going to have to do that again. But I think, this is it for Paul George in Indiana, and I think he'll probably end up a Laker.
Mitch Lawrence with us, Sirius XM NBA Satellite Radio. Mitch, the Bulls up 2-0. They get the news today that Rondo's out. So is there a light there for the Celtics, or are they done no matter what? I mean, with or without Rondo, are they done?
Well, the problem for the Celtics is, and it's, we saw this, first of all, if Thomas can't lead them, if he can't be their big scorer, if he can't turn himself into an Allen Iverson in the playoffs, which he isn't, by the way, then who else can step up for them? Al Horford doesn't move the playoff needle. He never did. They have a collection of role players. They need stars. That's their biggest problem. In the playoffs, it's the stars who produce. They make shots. They score. If they can't, they're really regular season stars and not playoff stars, and that's my argument about the two guys in Toronto, their backcourt. But I don't know if this is going to actually – it'll hurt Chicago. It may extend the series. But I think in the long run, when you're dealing with a Dwayne Wade and a Jimmy Butler and you're going at him with role players like Crowder and Marcus Smart who can't make a shot to save his life, I think this is it for the Celtics. And this just basically exposes them. They're a very good regular season team, but what do you need in the playoffs, guys? You need shot makers, you need stars, and they don't have any of those.
Yeah, I kind of agree, and I thought Chicago was going to give them fits coming into this series. We talked about it the last time we spoke, and I remember you saying, look, Thomas is great, but he's not Allen Iverson. Yeah. And we talked yesterday with Mark Jackson, former Sixer, and he talked about that, how difficult it is for a guy of that size to be able to take over a game in the playoffs.
That's why Allen Iverson's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Allen Iverson, when you look back, and he's not much bigger than Isaiah Thomas. I've stood next to both guys. That's what makes Iverson so special, made him a Hall of Famer. I didn't like Chicago's chances coming in the series. I saw the Nets and the Knicks beat them in the last 9 days of the season. I said, you know what? This team is ready to go home. Veterans know when they have no chance. I had no idea they could come together. Guess what? They had no idea either. After Game 1, Jimmy Butler was talking about, we didn't expect this. We didn't, the way we've played, as functional as we've been, we didn't know if we could come together. So it's been a total surprise from that standpoint. But, Isaiah Thomas is a very good player. Don't get me wrong. He's a nice scorer. He led the league. It's very hard to lead the NBA in fourth quarter scoring. But the playoffs are a different story. When teams they can really lock in on you. They can go to town and go to work on what how to take you out of games. You really have to be a special player if you're a guy who's under 5'9", 5'10", as Isaiah Thomas is, and as Allen Iverson was. That's why people, I think, more and more you appreciate the job that Allen Iverson did, being kind of the lone wolf guy on his team, a diminutive point guard, undersized guy with a huge heart who basically carried his team like nobody else.
Couple things for you, Mitch. Milwaukee just blows Toronto out. I know we're talking about Toronto, but are they in big trouble? I mean, because you wonder if they just had their eyes open by losing in Game 1. They got blown out last night.
No, it was terrible. I mean, I had to stick with Cleveland most of the time, but
with good reason.
DeRozan and Lowry were awful last night. They got knocked out really right away. And I heard, that Dwayne Casey warned them about a hostile environment. Please, that's Milwaukee. Toronto's a hostile environment. You go into Boston, that's a hostile environment in the playoffs. Indiana could be a hostile environment. Milwaukee's hardly been in the playoffs. They don't know what a hostile environment is, and those guys were just awful. But here's the problem for Toronto. Milwaukee's size, length, and quickness, and now confidence, that's not going anywhere. That comes right back at them. In these playoffs, when you play a team time after time after time, it's like what Boston's finding out. You're going to get your weaknesses are going to be exposed. And for Toronto, they don't have their starting backcourt of Lowry and DeRozan. I know they've gotten a lot of plaudits and they've won honors and stuff, but those guys, they'll be terrible. And last night they were awful. DeRozan didn't even make a shot from the field. And Milwaukee, what's helping Milwaukee with their quickness and their length and their size and guys like Antetokounmpo and Don Maker, that doesn't go away in these series. That stays there, and it's very hard for a team like Toronto, which doesn't score easily to begin with, to figure them out. So I think they're pretty much done. Yeah, that will be the shocker of the first round. Forget about Boston. They were not really a number one seed in my mind, but I thought Toronto would go deep in the playoffs because last year they had that great playoff run where they got a lot of playoff scars, but they made it to a conference finals. They can't get out of the first round. They've got some big decisions to make because Kyle Lowry can opt out. and they've got to re-sign Ibaka. I don't know if they'll do either.
Last one for you, Mitch. I don't know how much you saw, but I didn't watch a lot. I had the game on kind of in the background of Memphis, San Antonio. Now, I loved Fizdale the other night. I thought, hey, I don't know if we're going to win. I don't know if we'll do anything in this series, but I'm going to try to win over this is a veteran Memphis team. They've been together for a long time. You got a new coach. He comes in there. I thought that was a good job by him. But for about 10 minutes, I had my head down doing some work for today's show, and I don't think I heard them miss last night. I mean, every shot they took, I just heard them, the announcer, saying, another make. I'm like, what is going on? How about Memphis and Fizdale? And they might not win this series, but did that team gain respect for their rookie coach?
No doubt. Hey, I thought they were going to get swamped in this. I thought it was going to be over in 4. I just didn't like the fact that after Mike Conley, you got a Harrison kid who's, game 1 is deer in the headlights. As Fizdale himself said, they don't have a lot of proven. They got Conley and Gasol, and the Spurs have a lot more going for them. I'll tell you what. Last night, Kawhi Leonard got benched twice in a first-round playoff game. Name me an MVP candidate and a Finals MVP who's been benched twice for lack of effort, lack of just smarts. His approach to the game was bad. This is a guy who's probably going to finish 3rd in the MVP. I was stunned by that, but it was a great story because we all went crazy about what Fizdale did. That was tremendous. I know even Pat Riley, Fizdale came from Miami, and he said he's got that Miami DNA in him, and he's a fighter and a competitor, and you saw it at that press conference at the podium. And you know what? Even though they didn't get all the calls last night, as a matter of fact, they got some of the calls that went against them, and they got the majority of the calls against them in terms of the number of fouls, et cetera. But he definitely gained a lot of respect from the guys like Mike Conley. He already had that already because I don't know if you've been following Fizdale his first year. He tells it like it is. There is no sugarcoating with his players, with the refs. He tells what's on his mind. When I'm on the radio and they play the night before, I always make sure we got sound of Dave Fizdale if there's something because he will speak his mind. He doesn't hold anything back, and that was a command performance when he talked about the officiating. And he was right. I mean, if you saw that game the other night, it was awful what they did to them. He got fined, but he took the fine. He said somebody else is going to pay for it, but he's an up-and-coming they got a real good one there in Memphis. He's an up-and-comer.
Mitch Lawrence, Sirius XM Satellite Radio, Sporting News, Forbes, NBA playoffs continue. Listen to him tonight. The one matchup we didn't really get into, it's Westbrook against Harden. You can listen to the game on 97.3 ESPN. Enjoy all the hoops this weekend, Mitch.
You too, guys. Thanks for having me.